They were in that house for 41 minutes that we're aware of. 41 minutes. Again, this is not a professional takedown. This is somebody that doesn't know how to handle the situation that's in front of them.
Consider the doorbell footage of Nancy Guthrie that has consumed the internet. Millions dissected that masked suspect frame by frame for 6 weeks. But what if breaching the front door was never the actual plan? What if his role that night served a completely alternate agenda? A retired FBI special agent spent 25 years tracking down violent kidnappers. She says the physical evidence points elsewhere. If her analysis holds up, our entire understanding of this timeline shatters. The guy on the porch never took Nancy. Instead, a minimum of 2 individuals coordinated this abduction. They executed separate roles. Plus, the mastermind possessed intimate, behind-closed-doors intelligence about the layout of her home. Information you only get from the inside. Welcome to Crime Uncovered. We are breaking down veteran FBI insights and the physical trace evidence detectives continue to scrutinize in secret. The facts indicate a highly methodical trap that goes way beyond initial theories. Let me set the record straight before we proceed. Every single point in this breakdown stems directly from public records, verified journalism from major news outlets, and professional assessments from veteran law enforcement. Right now, authorities have charged absolutely nobody regarding the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie. Every individual discussed remains legally innocent. These hypotheses stem strictly from expert reviews of the data. We make no formal accusations. These are analytical perspectives, not legal facts. Anyone holding details about Nancy going needs to dial the FBI right now. Call 1-800-CALL-FBI. A massive $1.2 million reward stands. For anything bringing Nancy home safe, let us talk about who she really is. Because long before dominating the news cycle, she lived a quiet, peaceful life in Tucson, Arizona. At 84 years old, Nancy is best known as the mother of Savannah Guthrie, who co-anchors the NBC Today show. Yet well before the federal agents, reward money, and flashbulbs, Nancy anchored her Camino Real neighborhood out in the Catalina foothills. She reliably mailed out holiday cards every December. She greeted the local dog walkers. She memorized the names of every family on her block. Even in a sprawling city pushing 500,000 residents, she built a tight-knit, protective circle. Neighbors simply viewed her as the smiling, warm-hearted fixture who occupied that home for decades. She relies on a pacemaker. Her physical condition remains highly vulnerable, and relatives stress her constant need for clinical observation. She depends on a strict prescription regimen. Stripping her away from those crucial doctors, pills, and devices for any length of time poses an immediate, fatal threat to her survival. 46 days missing is brutal enough on its own. But this goes far beyond emotional agony for her loved ones. That is 46 straight days lacking the critical cardiology treatments keeping an 84-year-old patient breathing. The night of January 31st, 2026, began completely normal. She ate dinner over at the house of her daughter Annie. They caught up and enjoyed each other. A thoroughly standard evening. The exact type of mundane family gathering we all take for granted. Right up until disaster strikes, forcing you to cherish those quiet memories. Security footage showed the garage door of her Camino Real property shutting firmly around 9:50 p.m. Nancy made it inside safe. She likely started washing up, navigating her standard bedtime habits. She fully expected to greet another boring Sunday. She never saw the nightmare coming just 4 hours later. By 1:32 a.m. on February 1st, 2026, her Nest camera recorded a sequence that would eventually break the internet. A man stepped up to the entryway. A heavy ski mask totally blacked out his facial features. His hands were shielded by thick material, resembling either sterile medical gear or heavy-duty winter gloves. He sported a backpack. You could also spot what looked exactly like a holstered firearm strapped to his hip. Then his behavior shifted. Over a 15-minute window, stretching from 1:32 to 1:47 a.m., the prowler paced around that front porch, making zero tactical sense for a home invasion. He walked right up to the lens. He retreated. He fiddled with the buzzer casing. Then, the pattern broke. He shoved a handful of leaves straight toward the lens. The guy was actively trying to block the view. He lacked smooth, confident movements. He looked hesitant, almost like he was killing time, waiting for something to happen. Watch the clip today, and you might see a rookie criminal, just a sloppy burglar in over his head. A guy desperate to get inside, completely stumped by a basic camera setup and a locked front door. Jennifer Coffindaffer saw it differently. With 25 years as an FBI special agent working kidnappings, she recognized the pattern immediately. His job never involved entering Nancy's home. He was a decoy, a guy strictly paid to run out the clock. A planned distraction. Then, at exactly 1:47 a.m., the doorbell camera cut to black. The video feed died entirely. Just like that, we lost our eyes. We had zero visual confirmation of the scene on Nancy's porch. We do, however, have digital footprints, and they piece together exactly what happened next. Flash forward to 2:12 a.m. 25 minutes after the blackout, the Nest system's internal software tripped a motion alert. The video feed was dead, but the proximity sensors still worked. Somebody was still shifting around near that entrance. Without video, we cannot see who tripped the sensor. But that digital timestamp proves someone lingered on the property. Still active, still busy at the scene. Then comes 2:28 a.m., 41 minutes after the lens shut off. Exactly 56 minutes after the suspect first showed his face, Nancy's pacemaker abruptly disconnected from its remote medical network. Devices like hers ping data continuously to medical servers. Doctors rely on that feed to monitor heartbeats and catch emergencies instantly. A complete transmission failure only leaves two possibilities. Either the hardware took catastrophic damage, or the patient traveled way outside the designated network boundary. Nancy's house featured strong Wi-Fi and solid cellular service. That pacemaker had plenty of signal to work with. Whether she stood in her kitchen or the front yard, it should have transmitted. That 2:28 a.m. disconnect changes everything. At that exact second, something forced her out of range. Or somebody intentionally scrambled the device. By 2:36 a.m., neighborhood surveillance caught a car moving through the dark. Just 8 minutes after the heartbeat signal vanished, it passed down a residential street about 2.5 miles from Nancy's property. 8 minutes flat. Think about that window. You have to extract a target from inside a home, load them up, and cover 2.5 miles. Navigating quiet suburban streets, obeying speed limits so cops do not pull you over, and arriving at that exact spot. The margin of error is basically zero. These guys had their route mapped out and moved with aggressive speed, all while staying completely invisible. Later that morning, family members panicked when Nancy missed their calls and immediately dialed the authorities. Detectives pulled up to the property and found instant red flags. Blood stained the front porch, right next to the entrance. Lab results eventually matched that DNA to Nancy. Police continue to keep quiet about the actual volume of blood found. They refuse to confirm if it looked like a minor scrape or a massive, life-threatening wound. But any amount of blood means things got violent. It proves a physical confrontation took place. An unexpected injury, a mess they simply couldn't hide. But the missing evidence speaks even louder. What they didn't find shifts the entire theory. That front door had zero signs of forced entry. The frame was untouched. Not a single scratch or crowbar mark sat anywhere near the deadbolt. Nobody smashed their way in with tools. And Nancy actually had a custom security gate protecting that exact door. A thick, reinforced iron barrier. Neighbors called it practically bulletproof, and it stood there completely intact. No kicked-in hinges, no busted metal. Nobody even tried to brute force their way past it. Nobody has seen or heard from Nancy Guthrie since the dark, early morning hours of February 1st. Dozens of FBI agents tore the city apart. They pulled gigabytes of footage from multiple security cameras. Even with a reward ballooning to $1.2 million, nobody has been publicly named. Zero arrests made. For weeks, cops and internet sleuths obsessed over that porch video. They desperately tried to decode the suspect's movements. 15 agonizing minutes on tape. Body language experts picked apart his posture and stride. Tech gurus debated how he jammed the feed. Millions of viewers went frame by frame hunting for a single clue. A visible tattoo. A distinct brand logo on his backpack. Anything that could finally give him a name. But Jennifer Coffindaffer stepped back. She scanned the entire case file and spotted a massive detail everyone else missed. It wasn't hidden in that grainy porch video. It was a specific move detectives made right after Nancy vanished. Coffindaffer spent 25 years That is how long she spent hunting violent criminals as a federal agent across America. She worked abductions where a single wrong call decided if someone came home in a passenger seat or a body bag. She mastered the art of reading scenes, knowing precisely what a scuff mark or broken lock screamed about an intruder's methods. She understands police strategy. When detectives take a specific action, she knows precisely what they are hiding from the public. Reviewing the Nancy Guthrie file, one tiny anomaly caught her eye right away. Local news anchors briefly glossed over it during their broadcasts without grasping its true weight. The public largely dismissed it as standard police procedure. Detectives replaced the deadbolts on the rear doors of Nancy's home. To the untrained eye, securing a crime scene like this feels entirely mundane. A woman vanishes from her residence, so naturally, authorities upgrade the hardware. Securing the perimeter is basic textbook stuff. Yet for a veteran like Coffin Daffer, that specific upgrade flashed like a neon sign. Detectives rarely waste time swapping out every single knob on a property just for the sake of caution. They target precise locations. They swap a cylinder because they know the intruder used that exact threshold to get inside. They do it when a suspect is walking around with a stolen key in their pocket. It is a silent admission. Their actions broadcast their leading theory without a single press conference. Replacing the rear hardware changes everything. They ignored the front porch, the exact spot where surveillance caught the masked man. They left the side windows alone. That confirmed exactly where the actual breach happened. Sitting down for a recent interview, the former agent broke down her hypothesis without pulling any punches. The fact that they changed locks on the back, she said, "It makes me think that entry was made from the back, went through the garage, entered the home, and then the person that we see on video, his duty was actually to disable that camera." Pause and process that logic for a second. It completely shatters the accepted narrative surrounding that Ring video. That hooded figure lingering by the welcome mat was not forcing his way inside. Breaking in was never his objective. He had one specific mission: kill the lens and stage a convincing distraction. Meanwhile, an unseen accomplice slipped quietly through the shadows bordering the backyard. They likely breached the side garage door, a blind spot completely shielded from passing traffic. Apply that lens to the bizarre footage we have all watched 100 times. An actual forced entry takes 60 seconds, yet this guy loitered out in the open for 15 full minutes. He paced awkwardly. He retreated, stepped up again, and bizarrely held up branches to block his face. We mistook that hesitation for a rookie getting cold feet. In reality, he executed his script flawlessly. Draw the spotlight. Ensure anyone watching stared blindly at the porch. Burn the clock while the heavy lifter breached the rear perimeter. He only cut the feed at the exact second the inside man required total darkness. Coffin Daffer dropped another crucial insight tying these loose threads together. It made a lot of sense to me that there was a division of labor and that more than one person was involved. Let those 3 words sink in. This was not some random drifter acting on a sudden, violent impulse. We are looking at a highly choreographed strike. A minimum of 2 operators working in tandem. Both followed a strict timeline. One missed cue, and the entire job falls apart. Suspect 1 hits the porch at 1:30 a.m. His task is burning 15 minutes to fake a burglary. At 1:47 a.m., he receives the inside signal and kills the feed, standing by for crowd control. Suspect 2 stalks through the backyard, totally invisible to the ring system. While the decoy performs out front, the actual threat breaches the garage, corners the victim, and takes power. By 2:30 a.m., they are ready for extraction. Suddenly, that confusing porch footage makes terrifying sense. Fumbling with the lock was an act. He was literally counting the seconds until his accomplice breached the rear. He wanted the police and the public glued to that front step. He fed us a lie, while the real nightmare unfolded entirely off camera. And now, a second clue points straight to a multi-man hit team. There is a specific detail in that doorbell footage. Most viewers completely missed it on the first watch. The intruder arrived carrying a fully stuffed backpack. Former FBI Special Agent Chip Massey spent years resolving active hostage situations. He sat across from high-stakes abductors. His entire job centered on convincing them to let their captives walk away breathing. He knows exactly how offenders map out an assault. He also understands what a suspect's gear reveals about their actual motive. Massey broke down the security clip from Nancy Guthrie's porch. One specific visual element confirmed the true nature of the assault. The backpack, Massey explained during an interview. They go in with a full backpack. It's pretty clear, at least from what we're able to see from those video stills. And if you're going in with a full backpack, you're not thinking of a cash grab, right? You go in with an empty backpack if that's the case. Break down the logic here. A standard burglar hunting for high-end watches and loose cash operates with a very specific, predictable strategy. They haul empty duffels inside to maximize their payload. You need open cargo space when grabbing unpredictable loot off a shelf. Yet the individual standing on Nancy's front porch wore a bag packed to the absolute limit. They loaded that zipper tight long before stepping onto her property. That forces a very dark question. Massey offers solid theories based on the execution of the strike. Hardware meant to kill the security grid. Heavy wire snips. Signal jammers engineered to knock out local routers, blind the surveillance feeds, and mute the alarm panels. Short-range radios allowed them to coordinate a multi-point breach without bouncing a signal off a local cell tower. They likely packed secondary hand tools, just in case the digital blackout attempt failed completely. This attacker carried the exact gear required for one highly specialized job: terminate the visual record. Force a massive distraction. Give your accomplice a clean window. That heavy bag proves property theft was never the goal. They arrived to take Nancy. Every piece of equipment hauled onto her lawn served that singular, focused objective. This exact hardware loadout heavily supports the rear entry hypothesis. The individual caught on video clearly managed the frontal assault and the security blackout. That means a second operative breached the rear access point carrying an entirely different tactical kit. This second attacker held the zip ties required to subdue a fighting target. They packed the duct tape needed to silence a scream. A completely separate set of responsibilities: kick in the back door, secure the homeowner, lock down the environment instantly. Two intruders working two separate angles with two unique bags. The first guy draws all the heat. The second guy rips the target out of the house in total darkness. Yet something about this operation refuses to make sense. They mapped out a highly coordinated assault. However, major tactical errors prove these attackers lacked genuine professional experience. Massey spotted these glaring flaws instantly by leaning on his decades of behavioral profiling in the field. Watch how the intruder steps. Look at his selected gear and his physical posturing right in front of the lens. He followed a strict blueprint but clearly lacked the operational training to pull it off under pressure. "We see a guy that is trying to disguise his gait," Massey noted. "Once he enters toward the focal area of where that camera is, we see him slump and his movements become strange and exaggerated. His arms drop to his side. He's hunched over." Masking a natural stride is a very specific tactic. Offenders do it to avoid identification by friends or family familiar with their posture. The aggressive, slouching, and bizarre body mechanics exposed a total lack of practical experience in physical concealment. A seasoned professional shifts their walk while maintaining a fluid, entirely casual rhythm. This guy looks stiff and cinematic. He mimicked a Hollywood stealth sequence without possessing any real-world field instruction. Consider the hand protection. Massey highlighted the heavy, restrictive material completely wrapping the attacker's fingers. They look like dense winter gear or oversized medical barriers. Most importantly, they make operating a handgun nearly impossible. "Those thick, medical-looking style gloves don't match with that weapon," Massey stated. He's not going to be able to manipulate that weapon in a way that carries any type of proficiency. Firing a weapon requires constant tactile feedback. You must feel the trigger reset and actively manage your squeeze. Fine motor skills allow a shooter to disengage safeties, rack the slide, and strip the magazine if the gun suddenly jams. Bulky material ruins that control completely. This suggests the gun acted purely as an intimidation prop meant to stay unfired. Or maybe he possessed absolutely zero firearms logic. But then Massey caught sight of another crucial detail. Let's look closely at the gun placement. He shoved the firearm straight into his front waistband. Massey said, "Anyone can reach to that weapon and grab it, so it's like he's almost offering it." That is a massive rookie mistake. No trained operator tucks a firearm where an opponent can just snatch it and turn the tables. Keeping your piece front and center is a total tactical disaster. Your attacker gets an easy grab. You lose vital seconds trying to draw, breaking every rule of firearm retention in the book. The fake limp, the mismatched gloves, the terrible gun placement. It all screams one undeniable truth. We are looking at a guy who binged TV shows to figure out how a bad guy dresses. He lacked real tactical experience. But the ultimate proof of a botched scheme? The blood streaked across Nancy's front steps. The blood on that front stoop, Massey explained, shows me a lack of planning. They were completely caught off guard. They never expected their target to fight back. Real extraction teams anticipate resistance. They know their target will strike back. Pros pack gear to subdue panicking targets fast and in total silence. Zip ties and cuffs that deploy instantly. They use submission holds that lock down a person without shedding a single drop of DNA. Finding physical trauma and an intense scuffle proves these intruders severely underestimated this 84-year-old woman. They never guessed someone with a pacemaker would throw punches like Nancy Guthrie did. She gave them hell. Picture snapping awake at 2 a.m. Strangers in masks are standing in your bedroom. Pure panic sets in. You have to survive, clawing and battling for a way out. You give it absolutely everything. Nancy brawled until she bled. She fought until the crime scene was contaminated. She pushed back so fiercely that her attackers entirely lost their grip on the mission. She's confronted with a nightmare, Massey said. I can't imagine the amount of terror that was present. This leaves investigators facing a huge contradiction. One side shows intense prep work and stakeouts. They scouted the place on January 11th and January 24th. That means weeks of surveillance, dividing tasks between a two-person crew. They had the floor plan, knew her daily habits, and somehow jammed the neighborhood security cameras. Yet the actual home invasion was incredibly sloppy, terrible tactics, useless gear, and zero backup plan for a struggling victim. Why such a massive disconnect? The smartest theory points to a split in the team. The brains behind this plot and the muscle kicking down the door were completely different crews. An insider fed them the details. Someone mapping out Nancy's blind spots and routines handed over the blueprint. However, the guys who breached the front door that night had absolutely zero experience in hostage situations. No tactical background, no crisis control. They owned the playbook, but couldn't execute the plays. Somehow, they pulled it off anyway. And that leads directly to the strangest piece of the timeline puzzle. These intruders lingered inside for 41 minutes. A veteran crew grabs their target and vanishes in under 10, in and out. Because every ticking second inside that structure shoots the risk of getting caught through the roof. A dog barks, cops roll up on a tripped wire, the hostage slips away. Everything can fall apart in an instant. Yet they stayed 41 minutes, starting at 1:47 a.m. when the video feed died. The ordeal dragged until 2:28 a.m. when Nancy's pacemaker disconnected. That is a completely derailed timeline. Total panic, a blown mission, two guys drowning in a mess they didn't know how to clean up. The clock ticked for 41 agonizing minutes. Massey said, "This is not a professional takedown. This is somebody that doesn't know how to handle the situation that's in front of them." So what filled nearly an hour of dead time? Nancy snapped awake to a sudden noise or a shadow in her room. The crimson stains tell a violent story. She threw punches. Somebody caught a beating. The attackers likely scrambled to pin her down, burning precious minutes wiping up a messy scene they never planned for. They ransacked the rooms while wrestling an 84-year-old victim who unleashed absolute fury on them. That explains the massive 41-minute delay. But none of it matches the profile of cold, calculated pros. Yet even after burning nearly an hour, these guys hauled Nancy out into the night without a single neighbor noticing. Not one 911 call was made, which leaves us staring at a massive gap in the timeline. How did they vanish? Look down the street for a major clue. Based on current reporting, the local security grid was hiding a massive secret. During their neighborhood canvass, FBI agents asked residents one highly specific question. Did your internet drop out on the night of February 1st? Are there missing chunks in your security footage from that evening? That is not a standard question investigators ask during a routine door-to-door sweep. They only bring this up when they suspect someone intentionally killed internet service or camera feeds across an entire block. Prompted by the FBI, at least one neighbor went back and checked their video logs. They found zero data covering the exact time frame when Nancy was abducted. A camera that normally rolled 24/7 sat blank during those crucial hours. Several other setups near Nancy's property died at roughly the exact same moment. Investigators also found a vandalized utility box near her home. That box supplied internet and communication lines to the immediate neighborhood. You simply cannot ignore that timing. Chip Massey weighed in on the theory of signal jamming. Part of the conjecture is that they were using some type of jammer to eliminate that risk, he said. Yet he noted a major flaw. It begs the question, how were we able to recover any photographic imaging if they were jamming signals? He makes a solid point. If a broad jammer wiped out all wireless networks, we would have absolutely zero doorbell footage. Instead, we have 15 solid minutes of clear video before someone manually killed the feed. The most logical explanation is that these attackers layered their approach, combining multiple methods. They likely smashed the utility box to sever internet access, instantly knocking out any neighborhood camera that relied strictly on cloud uploads. Nancy's doorbell unit, however, might have featured a cellular backup or an internal memory card. That meant they had to physically rip it offline, which is precisely what the tape shows. Layering these attacks on surveillance requires serious technical planning. It completely clashes with the sloppy tactical errors we covered earlier. These intruders clearly grasped the ins and outs of modern security tech. They realized slashing the internet would blind most cloud-based lenses. They pinpointed which cameras needed physical destruction. Yet simultaneously, they wore bulky gloves, rendering their guns useless, completely unprepared for a fighting victim. How do you explain that gap? We are almost certainly looking at a crew with split roles and vastly mismatched skill sets. A tech-savvy mastermind mapped out exactly how to bypass the neighborhood surveillance, but the boots on the ground who executed that plan lacked the professional grit to pull it off cleanly. This loops us back to the heavy security gate, a major debate during the early analysis of this crime. Speaking to News Nation, a neighbor named Laura detailed how Nancy had a massive security gate installed right over her front door. It was a reinforced metal barrier, the kind of heavy-duty protection found on high-security properties. Laura even asked an expert about this exact setup, learning that breaching it was essentially impossible. "You're not breaking into those gates," Laura said. "You're never going to break into that security gate. I actually talked to a security guy about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and he confirmed, you're not breaking into those gates. Locked tight, that front gate offered absolutely zero entry points without heavy, specialized gear. It required serious time, making enough noise to wake every single neighbor within earshot. Police found zero evidence of forced entry there. No scratches, no tool marks, absolutely nothing. Early on, armchair detectives thought this debunked the backdoor theory. In reality, the security gate actually proves it. Facing an impenetrable steel gate meant the front porch was a complete dead end for any forced ambush. That lines up perfectly. Blocked at the front, the attackers had to pivot toward the rear garage. Out back, they could breach the house silently, completely hidden from street-level traffic. But that front gate still holds a major clue, because regardless of how they slipped inside, the intruders ultimately had to drag Nancy off the property. They could have hauled her out through the garage, retracing their steps. But another terrifying option remains. They might have marched her straight out the front. If so, someone had to unlock that heavy metal gate from the inside. Laura herself suggested this possibility. "I think there may have been someone inside the house already that was about to take Nancy out, like an accomplice, and that he's at the front door waiting for them to open the door." Let me be completely clear on this point. Law enforcement publicly cleared Nancy's family of any involvement. They are absolutely not suspects. They are grieving victims desperately, looking for their mom. Yet the inside job theory absolutely does not require her relatives' involvement. Actually, if a person with permitted entry pulled this off, odds strongly favor a hired property worker or a regular household contractor. Just consider who consistently walks right into the houses of vulnerable seniors living solo. Weekly housekeepers, the lawn crews cutting the grass, the guys coming by to scrub the pool, visiting nurses, appliance repairmen, even food delivery drivers. Every single one of them belongs there with a perfectly valid excuse. They get a front row seat to floor plans, security cameras, and her daily routines. Federal agents pulled security thumbnails from Nancy's estate, capturing various hired hands present right before she vanished. ABC News reported those thumbnails show yard maintenance and pool guys. Every one of those men walked her grounds. Each of them knew exactly how her security and floor plan operated. The physical proof heavily points toward a person with authorized entry helping orchestrate this entire abduction. They timed her solo hours perfectly. They navigated her exact floor plan to stage a targeted rear door breach. The perpetrator understood her pacemaker and fragile health. They memorized exactly where security cameras pointed. They realized her front gate blocked a direct assault, leaving that back patio door wide open for attack. You do not get that hyper-specific intel just cruising past a driveway. That comes from authorized interior access over several months. That means gathering intel without triggering any red flags. This exact dynamic terrifies absolutely anyone who has an aging parent living entirely by themselves. If her attackers gained entry through professional duties, Nancy completely lacked any logical reason to worry. A familiar yard guy or pool tech blends right in. Real-world predators rarely wear ski masks in the dark. They build extreme trust and appear incredibly helpful, staying perfectly professional right up until they violently break that bond. So exactly where is this manhunt sitting 46 days after Nancy went missing? That overwhelming early federal presence definitely shrunk. Now, the Phoenix field office handles the bulk of the federal legwork. Agents simply drive down to Tucson when required. Evidence collection is finished, and they thoroughly dissected every frame of video. Witness questioning wrapped up. Crime lab technicians are still tearing through DNA, prints, and hard drives. But deep forensic science demands massive processing time. Former Phoenix FBI Special Agent in Charge Steve Hooper tackled identical kidnappings. He detailed exactly how this middle phase plays out. Detectives need just a single, solid witness to finally flip. Quote, I guarantee the FBI has been tapping into their informants, their sources. Federal agents just need somebody to talk. A terrified getaway driver. A suspect's relative who catches them burning clothes or acting extremely paranoid. Or an informant realizing a $1.2 million bounty easily buys their total cooperation. That massive payout, $1 million from her family, $100,000 from the FBI, and $100,000 anonymously genuinely transforms a normal person's life. It buys a clean slate. It buys serious protection for anyone caught up in an incredibly volatile crew. This explains Savannah Guthrie shifting her media tactics. Early on, she aimed her pleas directly at her mom's abductors. She used targeted words, attempting to spark their empathy, offering them a clear psychological out to return her safely. Then her entire angle flipped. She dropped the kidnappers entirely, pivoting her message to the general population. She begged anyone holding clues to speak up. FBI hostage negotiator Chip Massey flagged that instant pivot. We saw a break from her addressing the captors, he stated. That strongly indicates a complete breakdown in talks, missed ultimatums, or ignored demands for proof of life. Several news stations received ransom letters demanding wildly varying payouts. $6 million, $70,000, $50,000, or a single Bitcoin. Yet the FBI confirms absolutely zero verified communication exists with anyone proving they actually hold Nancy. Time limits expired with zero vital signs shown. Authorities did arrest California resident Derek Colella over a fabricated ransom letter. However, detectives rapidly confirmed he played absolutely zero part in Nancy vanishing. He just wanted to cash in on a family's nightmare. Meanwhile, federal techs systematically processed DNA data, extracting lost video alongside Google engineers, tracing genetic family trees, and dumping cell tower pings. Investigators are reviewing the bank records of every single property visitor. Yet this entire mystery hinges on one courageous tip. If you drove through Tucson's Catalina foothills between midnight and 3 a.m. on February 1st, maybe you noticed something out of the ordinary, a strange car parked on your street, or a pedestrian who just didn't seem to fit. If anything felt wrong, reach out to the FBI immediately at 1-800, call FBI. You might brush off a minor detail as useless, but let the detectives decide that. One tiny observation often cracks a massive case wide open. Got home surveillance video from that evening? Send it straight to tips.fbi.gov, even if you watched it yourself and caught absolutely nothing. Trained professionals regularly spot crucial evidence that an everyday homeowner might scroll right past. A passing truck, a sudden shadow shifting across the lawn, a specific timestamp that locks down a suspect's exact timeline. Think about the people in your circle. Did someone start acting differently after February 1st? Maybe they suddenly flashed cash they shouldn't have. Or maybe they grew incredibly paranoid and skipped town, leaving the Tucson area without any warning. You need to speak up. Sharing a tip doesn't mean you are pointing fingers. You are simply handing over raw facts so the authorities can do their jobs. Plus, there is a massive $1.2 million reward on the table for any lead that finally brings resolution. Now, if you played a role in this, if you took a payoff or fed details to the people who actually executed this crime, your chance to walk in freely is shutting fast. The task force is gaining ground every single day. Someone is going to break, and when law enforcement knocks on your door before you walk through theirs, all your bargaining chips vanish. The state prosecutors hold the sole power to grant you legal protection from an indictment. Loved ones simply cannot promise you a free pass, regardless of how deeply they want to. What Nancy's relatives can do is stand fiercely behind whoever steps up to ensure her safe return. They just want her back, completely unconditionally, and they are fully ready to hand over that massive payout. They are begging for an ounce of humanity. Nancy Guthrie is a mother, a grandmother, a deeply loved community member. She is 84 years old, relies on a pacemaker, and battles severe medical issues. Missing her critical treatments for 46 straight days, almost 7 full weeks, means her survival hangs by a thread. She is not just another news story. She is a cherished human being with relatives who stare at the ceiling every night, wondering if she is still breathing, wondering if she is terrified or hurting. If you hold a single piece of this puzzle, you need to make the call right now. Dial the FBI directly at 1-800-CALL-FBI. Or drop a lead digitally via tips.fbi.gov. $1.2 million is on the table. 46 agonizing days have passed since Nancy Guthrie vanished. A person walking around right now knows the truth. They know her exact location. They know the mastermind and the actual motive. That individual must step out of the shadows, because Nancy has to come home, and her family demands answers. You are watching Crime Uncovered. Hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss a breaking update as this investigation develops. Also, push this video across all your social platforms. Maximizing our audience drastically increases the odds of reaching the right witness. Let's get Nancy back. We completely refuse to abandon her, and we will keep pushing forward until she is finally found.